Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Life with Ussie. If you've made it to episode 3, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for staying. This is a series that is very deep. It's not like light work at all. And it's a very honest one. And I thank you for staying. So, today's episode is called When Trauma Becomes a Personality. I know with trauma doesn't always announce itself as pain. Sometimes it disguises itself as a personality. You don't really go on about your day with or saying that I'm traumatized. Saying to people, I actually have trauma. Sometimes you might, but it's not on a day to day basis. What you might commonly say or commonly relate to is I'm just independent. I don't really need anyone. Or I'm just a guarded person. I'm always just prepared for the worst. Or something like I don't really trust easily. I feel like people will disappoint you at the end of the day. I know that a lot of us can relate to one or two of these. That is trauma responses. That is a trauma disguising itself as a personality. And for a long time, this might feel normal to you. It feels like strength, it feels like your essence, or even a sense of protection. But some of these things that we call personalities are actually what we call coping mechanisms that have helped us survive. Trauma teaches you how to survive a moment, right? How to get through life because sometimes you would be in a situation that needs you to have this hard shell, to have this protection for yourself because otherwise you're going to be eaten alive. But if it's never processed, it starts teaching you how to live your life. And slowly, survival does harden into a personality. What you've learned to survive then turns into a personality. And this is not because you're broken, but simply because your nervous system learns a language. And that language was how to survive. You learn to not need people anymore because needing people once taught you that it leads to disappointments. It leads to you getting hurt. It leads to you being by yourself, right? And you were never wrong for becoming who you needed to be at that time to survive. But you don't always have to stay there. That's the key part. You don't always have to stay there because sometimes taking trauma responses into a new season will sabotage you. You don't have to keep living in defense mode. You don't have to keep proving you're strong even when you don't need to. You don't have to keep shrinking your needs to stay safe. And we've talked about this. Healing isn't about erasing your past, but it's about separating who you are from what happened to you. This is the part where we slow down, right? Where we slow it down, bring it back to self, and we start the identity work. Because reclaiming your identity doesn't happen by saying, I'm going to fix myself. What is wrong with me? Why do I do this? Right? It Reclaiming your identity happens when you start asking the right questions. You start asking, going deep, asking real questions. Not questions like, what's wrong with me? But questions like, what did I need back then and that I didn't receive? And also not questions like, why am I like this? But questions like, what part of me learned this to survive? What part of me learned this to survive? Then, in that point, you're able to disassociate yourself from the survival personality to who you're becoming. And then from there, you gently start experimenting with safety, with the feeling and the idea of being safe. The feeling and the idea of, okay, maybe I'm allowed to let myself rest. You start entering into spaces where you can feel like you can rest. You allow yourself to be held, opening up to the idea that people can actually help you and not need anything in return. All right? Letting yourself feel without immediately needing to control the outcome. Understanding that sometimes things will not really go according to our expectations, and that is okay. You don't need that anymore. This part of you, who you're becoming, does not need that anymore. Also, take it to God. Pray about those fears. Invite God to take you back to yourself, back to your true self, because He is the only one who knows you to the core. And I'm always an advocate about writing things down. Journal, write things down. This allows you to see and um, have clear perspective of who you were and who you're becoming. And once you start peeling all those layers of hurt, once you start shedding, then you will realize that there is actually more softness in you than you've been allowing yourself to access. There's more safety waiting for you than you've been allowing yourself to experience. And there's actually a truer version of you underneath this armor, underneath this hard shell that still remembers how to breathe freely. I remember with me, I used to be hyper independent. I don't need a man. I don't need to be a help. I can do it myself. I used to be so hyper independent because I knew man as being disappointing. We go back to those father issues, to those daddy issues. I associated men with disappointment. I didn't. I'm like, I don't need a man. I can do it. If a man can do it, if a man can do it, I can do it myself. And you have to go through the work because you cannot in a season whereby God gives you the promised land, whereby you are elevating. You cannot bring, you cannot, it's like bringing the trash with you everywhere you go. Imagine. I'm clean, I'm sprayed up, I have my makeup on, I smell good, I smell nice. And then I go about and I take the trash with me everywhere I go. Imagine. Imagine. So please, I need you to take this journey. Take this journey slowly, kindly, without pressure to arrive, because becoming is a journey, and it is a journey worth taking. It's a journey worth being patient for. I'd also like to thank you for being here with me on today's episode. We're going to touch on more topics like this. Please share it with someone who might need it. And until next time, take care.